Greetings. Introducing Voices of Festival, brand new podcast series from the International African Arts Festival, created to keep you connected as we count down to our 55th year of culture, creativity, and community. Each week, hear directly from the artists, dancers, musicians, vendors, and community members who make this festival an unforgettable experience. Tune in every Thursday at 8 p.m. on YouTube for Voices of Festival. Celebrate the culture, feel the rhythm, be part of the journey. Badigani, Hotep, Akwaba, Salaam Alaikum, Alafia. Welcome to Voices of Festival. I'm Adeyemi Bandele, your host. Good to have you with us. Hope that you will share this information. We've got an incredible guest this evening. He was with us before. We're bringing him back again, particularly as we begin Black History Month. But first, let me take care of some business because I am solo tonight and my co-host Sakina unable to join us. So one, I need you to like, we need you to share, and we need you to donate to Voices of Festival. This is our institution here, and we need you to take full responsibility for this. You know, we went through Kwanzaa, we talk about self-determination and those things, and we have to apply them throughout the year. Ujamaa, you know, cooperative economics. Your support for the festival is extremely important, and we need you to build that support. In fact, this year, we're looking at a Drive for 55. This is our 55th anniversary of the International African Arts Festival. And in order for us to continue, we need your active participation. As you know, funding is being cut from a lot of sources, and we don't get much funding from the institutions. And so we depend upon you. Our source has been in the past the vendors and craftspeople who have come through year after year. But we also need from the people your support. And, you know, our folks ain't crying broke. You know, we're not going to accept that because we can spend money on what we want, but those things that we need, we get reticent about it. We can't do that. So once again, please make a contribution. Drive for 55. You can pledge through Cash App, and you go to IAA Festival. We need your support. Also, we want you to help us build this podcast. So we need you to share. We need you to send it out, you know, to 10 people and ask them to share it. This is going to be built from the bottom up. And we want you to continue to grow this vehicle, this communications organ. All right. Now, a couple of things I need you to put on your calendar. First and foremost, on Sunday, February 22nd, there will be a gathering to talk about Mamdani and his relationship to the African-American community in New York City. Former Assemblyman Roger Green will be on there, among some other folks. And so that'll take place at Restoration Plaza, Sunday, February 22nd. Then our annual libation will take place on Sunday, June 7th. Same place, back at Restoration. And we want you to come through there. It has always been an awesome event, and join us for that. The artists for that have not yet been confirmed, so just keep listening. And then finally, July 3rd through 5th, the 55th International African Arts Festival takes place at Lincoln Terrace Park over in East New York. It's a new venue. It'll be a different vibe, but essentially it will still be the festival as you know it, with incredible craftspeople, foods, and performers, as well as activities for children. So come on out. I think that's everything, but if not, I'll bring the rest of it to you next week. But right now, it gives me great pleasure to bring back to the podcast um, an activist scholar was with us before. Last go round, Professor James Small, we talked about this challenge that African American men are dealing with prostate. And we also paid tribute to Assata Shakur. This visit by him, we want to take a look at Black History Month. What's its history? Does it have any significance? What have been some of the positives and challenging aspects of that? And then we want to also talk about the state of our movement. So please, well, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a scholar activist. Professor Smalls is an organizational consultant. He's CEO of Sanaa Lodge Enterprises located in Ghana. He's CEO and president of African American Management Company located in Ghana. International vice president, the Organization of African American Unity, and international vice president of World African Diaspora Union, WADU. He's a priest of Oya. He's a Babalarisha, Ifa tradition. He's a former imam, retired of the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, founded by Malcolm X, and past president of the Eastern region of the Association of for the Study of Classical African Civilization. Would you all please welcome Professor James Small? Now, Bob, you know that was like just about one paragraph of your bio, right?
That's a lot of stuff. I go like, you know.
Hey, but listen.
When we were all young, we did a lot of stuff.
Who you telling, man? But none compared to you. But, you know, as I thought about this conversation with you, and I remember reading your bio before, as part of this discussion, talk a bit about your relationship to El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X.
Yes, sir. Well, my relationship, I met him only once. I saw him on television when I was 15. That's 1962. My mom and dad had moved to New York a couple of years before, and I told mom, my dad was a trade unionist. So I wanted to come and see Malcolm. And my mother was very involved, you know, NAACP. She was in the March in Washington the next year. And in 63, they brought me up to New York for the summer so that I can meet Malcolm X. And he wasn't that known then, but in the South, one time on television, seeing a black man with that kind of power shook the foundations of the South. And I wanted to be like that man, right? And so I finally met him on 141st Street and 8th Avenue, 1963. He's giving out flyers against the March on Washington.
Okay.
And me and my buddy Dwight, you know, we're 16-year-olds, scared to death. Here's this giant of power, and we're coming up to meet him in this humble, you know, just to introduce ourselves and tell him where I was from, South Carolina, Georgetown, so forth. And we got into an education, but discussion about education because I was going to leave school, not go back home, and join the nation. And he gave me a lecture on why I need to stay in school and the role that education would play in the liberation of our people. I mean, I think that was the impetus of me going to college, studying and doing the things, a lot of the things that I did, because he laid that on me. I went back to South Carolina, thought I was Malcolm X, acting like Malcolm X, the whole town, black and white, turned me into pariah. I was in the Naval Reserves with a full scholarship to go to college. But somehow they manipulated it so the day I graduated, I had to leave town and join the Navy. You're that Negro troublemaker, right? And I stayed in 2 months, but a friend of mine, my commander, a young white man from Boston, got me out. I attended Savannah State, got involved in civil rights conflicts, and had to leave college because it involved some stuff, right?
Good trouble.
Big trouble, gunfire, that sort of thing. Though I wasn't directly involved, it happened around me. Okay. And so I had to leave college. And, you know, I was angry because I was the first in my family to attend college. And I just felt like I went home crying, boohooing, telling mama they're not going to be proud of me. And she I kept remembering the old lady saying, but we proud of you. We proud of you just for going. And I was so afraid I would be arrested. I immediately asked for active duty. And 2 weeks later, I'm in Rota, Spain, Valencia, Spain, in the U.S. Navy. And while in the Navy, I got involved with a group of young Black activists. We call ourselves the Split Brotherhood. And we were fighting at first just to wear our hair in a natural hairdo. And anything written we can learn about Malcolm X, we were trying to read it. And then we heard through my brother who was in the OAU that he was coming to Paris. And we were stationed in Cannes. And so we went over to Paris to try to go to this meeting, but the thing was canceled with no explanation. So we go back to Cannes and Nice and like young 18-year-olds do party and have a good time. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks, I think it was, I get mail call and I have a big package and it's the clippings from my brother of his assassination. Wow. That changed my entire life, right? And I made an album of these clippings in a photo album and I'm showing it around. And then the CID, which I had no idea what the CID was then, until then, that's the Central Intelligence Division of the Navy, which is, you see on TV now, CSI or something.
And NCIS.
NCIS. They came and seized my portfolio of my photos and clippings of Malcolm's death. I still wasn't politically sophisticated enough to understand what that was about. I fought to get it back. I couldn't get it back. And I became more radicalized with the Brotherhood. And we then took the posture when our ship was ordered to Vietnam that we would not go. I was the only one that got court-martialed because I said something wrong. I said if I went, the ship wouldn't get there. Well, that was taking a little bit too far. So I end up having captain's pass, which is the Navy's version of court-martial. But the admiral was my confidant because by this time I was the ship's librarian. I was stuck in the library as a way of isolating me from ship's company because I was the organizer, the talking boy, right? And so they said, well, let's put him someplace nobody goes to the library. He's a librarian. But the admiral who commanded the ship, his stateroom was right next to the library. And when I got into new books every week, I would take it to him before I did the Dewey Decimal System and log them. And so we got to be like real cool. I became his Negro boy that he could tell all his troubles to because he knew I wouldn't talk to nobody. That's how I got out of the court-martial. He gave me 48 days instead of 48 years, right? I still refused to go and fight in Vietnam. I refused, along with others, but I was at the head of leading that whole move, that I would not fight in Vietnam. I would not go to war in Vietnam. I eventually got transferred to another ship, the USS Everglades, which was an ammunition. It was like sleeping on an atomic bomb every night for the next 8 months. Most of my friends that went to Vietnam, I would later learn they died. Most of the brothers in the Brotherhood died, 15 of them and 1 killed. So I know that was not accidental. They were all in one truck when the truck exploded. I wouldn't find that out for years when I'm trying to find out what happened to Epps, what happened to Bess, what happened to Steve, what happened to the Brotherhood. And I would find out even the person among us who was the collaborator and informant. And it turned out to be someone from my hometown, someone I grew up with, someone I looked up to, right? Who never came back to the country. He still lives out of the country. I thought that was something exotic, but no, he wasn't coming back because of what he did. Right? And we only learned that after he had cancer and thought he was dying. Matter of fact, he had prostate cancer when I got the call. Right? And so when I got home, the first thing I did was to make a beeline in November 1966 to the OAAU, looking for Malcolm's people.
Now, question: where is home? Was this going back south, or you were now living in New York?
Georgetown, South Carolina. But now, when I'm saying home now, I'm in New York with my mom and dad.
Okay.
Right? And so I go looking for the OAAU, and Ella is holding a rally on 125th Street,
which is Malcolm's sister, Ella Collins.
Right. And she's surrounded by all these security men. But I know I'm the best of the best because I had to live through all these crazy white people in the Navy. So I walk up to the stage and put my hand on the woman's foot. Just set it on her shoes. I don't know what made me do it. And the brothers jumped me. And she said, leave him. She said, leave him alone. Let him go. And she leaned over. She had someone for a pen. She wrote her address down and told me to be there at 7 o'clock on Tuesday. And I walked away. Tuesday, I went by at 2 in the afternoon because I ain't rolling up in no place at 7 o'clock. Right? So that I don't know nothing about. So I roll up at 2 in the afternoon. She answers the door, but she's not dressed in this African gele and all the beautiful African clothes. She got on a ripped up piece of shirt, a feather duster, a dirty rag on her head, and some slippers, right? Flip-flops. I don't even recognize her, and a wig.
Oh.
And so she says, "Oh, I know, Ms. Collins." She said, "Maybe you better come back tonight." So I came back at 7. Now she's in her full African regalia. She's sitting up there, and I realized that's the same woman. And so after about, you get interviewed by the security, and the brothers put me through the 9. And about, I guess, a month later, I was called into an interview and asked if I would be willing to move to Boston and be on Ella's security force. Because I was a good security man. I learned a lot in the military. And I agreed. And 6 months later, I was approached by the brother who buried Malcolm, Hisham Jabba, and another brother named Ahmed Osman, who was a close Sudanese friend of Malcolm, to ask me because I asked them to open the mosque. I was a soldier in the AU already and in the martial arts and all of this. But I thought that the brothers, I was recruiting most brothers that came back from Vietnam because I wanted warriors. I wanted people willing to die. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have a spiritual core. So I asked to reopen the Muslim Mosque, Inc. And they agreed, but then they asked me, would I be the imam? Well, I came out of the Baptist church. I had enough of religion. I don't want to have nothing to do with religion. I said, no, those guys need it. I don't need it. Right? So there was a conclave of brothers from Saudi Arabia, from Sudan, from other parts of Africa and here, and they interviewed multiple persons. And one day Hisham, the brother who buried Malcolm, came to me in the mosque and asked me, pulled me aside and told me that I had been elected the imam of the Muslim Mosque, Inc., which I abruptly refused. I did not want to be the imam of nothing. So they did the search for another 2 weeks. And again, he came, we were in the mosque, and he asked me, he said, Brother Small, would you go for a walk with me around the block? I said, I've never taken that walk. Because on the walk, he convinced me to do it for 1 year while they trained somebody, send someone, they were going to send him to the Sudan for a year, to get the brother acclimated. I already had studied as a librarian. I was hip on all religions.
Well, question. Had you already taken Salat and had become a Muslim?
Yes, but under Haji Sham Jabba. Yes. Okay. I was, before I became the imam, I was Amin Shahid. Amin Shahid. And so now they wanted me to be Imam Amin Shahid. So I accepted to do it for 1 year, which turned into something like 14 years. Mm-hmm. And I went to Mecca in 1972, 73. Or 73 went into 74, 73, 74. Made my Hajj. I was accompanied by Malcolm's nephew, Rodnell Collins, Ella's son. And we went Hajj together. And also, Imam Jamil, Rap Brown, was there same time that we were. We all met at one point and had lunch together and talked. So I found myself, but in the midst of all of this now, there's all of the stuff that's going on. The campus takeover in '69. I'm one of the student leaders there.
At City College.
City College, right. I'm a part of the takeover the state office building site on 125th Street.
Reclamation site.
Number 1. Yeah.
Hello.
So I'm
boy,
all kinds of stuff.
This is sure Black history for me. Go ahead.
And so this is when we met the brothers from the Last Poets for the first time, because they would come every week and help us. You remember, raise funds. But a lot of work was done that summer in the street. We went to Mississippi. We had the house blown out from under us. I think that's the same year we do the Venceremus Brigade and go to Cuba to cut sugar cane. There was so much happening so fast between 68 and 72. And so being involved in all of this and watching the formation of the Black Liberation Army take place, I was very close comrades and worked with Zaid Shakur. Zaid was the captain of the Bronx chapter of the Black Panther Party. His older brother, Lumumba Shakur, that's the Feni's husband, he was captain of the Harlem branch of the party. Both of them was in the OAU and Muslim Mosque. Their father was one of Malcolm's instructors before when Malcolm got killed, then, people dispersed to many other organizations. The party was being born, so a lot of the young brothers went to the party. But we kept our relationship, and I became the liaison between the party. I got to know Sister Asada, was elemental, thank God, and keeping her safe in her transition from one space to the other. Because we were just young people trying to survive. We didn't know about no history, right? Nobody was thinking about history. We were thinking we got to do what we got to do today because this has to be done. You understand? There was shortage of money in the community. And so we had to go into a thing, we always call it reclamation, reclaiming what was ours to help do what we had to do. I helped open 2 of the breakfast programs here in Harlem at that time. So that was just our life. We was in the street trying to teach our people, teach our children, help our women, keep the brothers out of jail, fighting against the drugs. We were sitting down and having a meeting with Nicky Bonds and the others, trying to negotiate some space for our people. You understand? And a part of that negotiation of space, we got Nicky Bonds to give us a 15-year with no drugs sold at the City College of New York. You understand? I just agree that me and my people don't mess with you in the streets.
Let me ask you something, because I didn't read this part of your bio, but you are an advisor to the television program, which features Bumpy Johnson. So you were involved with both Nicky Barnes and Bumpy.
I knew Mr. Johnson. I didn't understand how important the man was to our history, but my sister was Vivian. Anybody who walks in the bar scenes from Paris Blue to the Rennie Lounge would know my big sister. And that's how I met Mr. Johnson, because at Paris Blue and the Rennie Lounge, he wouldn't let nobody else serve him except Vivian, And they got in a quick conflict once because he tried to get Viv to snort some coke, and Viv wasn't. And she and Mr. Johnson almost had a big fight up in there. But that was my big sister. People respected her. She was one of the best barmaid and manager in Harlem. No one opened a bar without Vivian. And so all of the underground people moved through those bars. Casablanca.
Was Smalls open at that time?
Yes, Smalls was still open. Jacques was still open. Casablanca came into being. Empire Bar was still open. Paris Blue. Harlem was like one of the sweetest places for jazz clubs, nightclubs.
All right, now I'm from Brooklyn. So we had our places.
That was sweet too.
Yeah.
And so, and the ballrooms, a lot of people don't understand. There was a culture there, ballroom dancing. Every Friday night, bring your own brown bag. They would have a live band, and then they have a DJ spinning music, playing the music in between. And I love to dance. So every Friday night, I have my brown, and me and my boys, we were wrapped, rugged, and ready to go. And it was just one beautiful place to live. And to be involved in the politics was just so clean to me, And I set up a martial arts class, and with a couple of other brothers who was our teachers. One of them is an ancestor now. And what we would do, we would bounce at the different after-hour joints, and they would give us 3 and 4 days a week in that space to practice our martial arts, because we ain't had no money. You know what I'm saying? We were young bloods in the movement. But we would give us.
When you said bounce, meaning you were bouncers.
Yeah, security. We were bouncers for them on the weekend. We were weekend security, and during the week, if the space was empty, we could use that to do our martial arts teachings and training. And so we set up block patrols in Harlem. We had block patrol from 135th Street to 145th Street, from Lennox Avenue to St. Nicholas, and we got the crime down 100%. We made the neighborhood so clean the crooked cop couldn't operate. So they arrested a bunch of our brothers one night. I rolled up on the precinct 500 strong, right? Chief Inspector Eddie Waite showed up there and let all my brothers go because they had arrested us for having the nunchucks. And so he let us go, and he issued us batons. And that time it was the new baton with the little handle on it, police batons. Then the cops get mad because we got their new batons before they got it. But he said, look, these guys have cut down the crime in this neighborhood 100%. I'm giving them the batons, and then not to be touched again. And we were never touched again. you know. So those things, block patrol, patrolling the streets, taking care of our women, taking care of our children, patrolling the halls of the big building that we call projects, but we didn't call them projects. Those were our homes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did a lot of that nobody talk about. They talk about you wearing the beret or the dress, but they didn't talk about the work we did in the evenings when we got off from work. I worked at a security guard with Burns, $50 a week. But $50 a week was big money then, you know?
Yeah.
And I learned from everything I did. And we had our meetings and taught our history. In the course of that, I met Dr. John Henry Clark. I met Dr. Ben. I met Dr. Ben's partner, the other professor.
Simmons, George Simmons.
George Simmons.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Let me say this. People talk about two people, and they always forget their sidekicks. When they talk about Queen Mother Moore, they don't mention Mother Langley.
Yes.
And with Dr. Ben,
we forget George Simmons. George
you can't
Simmons.
do that. But listen, it's a good place to segue into what I was supposed to talk to you about, but this is so interesting. And before I make the segue, you know, it's interesting that oftentimes the people who we now look at as part of history had no clue that what they were doing had such historical importance. Mm-hmm. All they were doing was handling their business at the time, you know, and so when you mentioned that you didn't know that you were making all this history, most history makers don't realize they're making history till it's over. But let's segue then into this thing of the 100th anniversary of Black History Month.
Yes.
Your perspective on it. I mean, it's been 100 years. Started out Black History Week. Do you have a sense that it has served a purpose?
Oh yeah.
Or has it been a detriment?
Any people who don't know their history is doomed to death. Any people who don't know their history is doomed to death. Economic death, political death, cultural death. You understand? Intellectual death. Because history is the experience of your ancestors struggling against the adversaries that is trying to keep you from becoming who you are trying to become. If you don't have a blueprint of that struggle, how do you know where to begin or where to go? History tells you what to emulate and what to throw away. You know, history tells you what is significant and what is precious and what is holy and what is special and what is not. But you have to have it to make those discerning. And so our history is like the umbilical cord back to our ancestry. And if that gets cut, you're in trouble. The umbilical cord is what nourishes you. It's your nutrients, you see. And so it isn't that Carter G. Woodson created anything other than the awareness, the deliberate awareness. If you go back to the 1740s, when the brothers in Massachusetts founded the African Free Lodge, which becomes the Prince Hall Free Masonic Lodge, they named it the African Free Lodge. They still knew who they were. When the Black people in Savannah, Georgia, founded the African Baptist Church in 1749 down there, when there wasn't even a white Baptist church in Savannah yet, they still knew who they were. You understand? So we didn't lose our history, but our ability to carry out the intergenerational transmission of our historical knowledge, especially using institutions, had been wiped away and taken away from us. Had impaired greatly our ability to carry out intergenerational transmission of our body of knowledge and our experiences. And what Carter G said, that it had to be, and he was the second brother to the second African-American person, second African person to get a PhD from Harvard University. And he got his PhD in history. Du Bois was the first one. And this is a young man who didn't go to high school till he was 20 years old, because he had to work in the coal mines of West Virginia to take care of his family. His mom and dad was born into slavery. Understand? He was born in a place, I think, called Canton, Virginia. Extraordinary young man. He did an analysis. He wrote a book of 1922 with a critique on the Black church. and his role. I think he wrote something like 20 books. His classical work is The Miseducation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was trying to say, without an understanding of your history, you cannot even be psychologically healthy, let alone intellectually healthy, socially healthy, culturally healthy. And you need all of those things in order to move forward and construct a family. First, an individual character, then a family, then a neighborhood, then a community, and then a nation. Because those things have to be in place in order to understand how to create the institution to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you something. I come out of the school of G2 Wayusi.
Yes, sir.
And G2 was a consummate institution builder.
Yes.
Whatever we engaged in, the outcome was always going to be the creation of an institution.
Right.
So Uhuru Sasa came out of the struggle around education, creation of our story. The Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, Carter G. Woodson's role in the formation of that. And was that for him an attempt to create a vehicle that would move forward what you're talking about in terms of this identity?
Right. One of the things, and he's working with Mary McLeod Bethune and a number of other who are all young people at the same time.
Yeah.
And they become the great heroes that create these institutions. But Woodson, from the very beginning, wanted to put together curricula for the schools back in the 1920s. We thought we started it in the 1970s. No. In the 1920s, this is what he's fighting for. How do we create curricula? The History Week was an attempt at putting emphasis on the importance. It wasn't an attempt to limit when we celebrate ourselves, but to put emphasis on the importance of celebrating ourselves. And that is, of course, that's 100 years. And it's been 50 years since we expanded it into Black History Month.
Now,
the Black History 12 months.
Right. Now, question. The selection of February, do you want to speak to that?
Right, because a lot of people are misinformed. They said, oh, the white man gave up the shortest month.
Yeah.
He chose that month because he thought people would be more accepting of the concept, because that was the month with the birthday of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And Fred Douglass was considered, and still is considered, the father of the civil rights movement in America. And Lincoln, of course, because of what happened with the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War, and us getting the 14th Amendment following that and getting what was at least quasi-freedom, they thought that Lincoln, who was at that time considered to be the savior of the Black man in many terms, that people would accept that devotion to a week on our history during the birthdays of those two men. And that's how we end up in February. I wish it was July when I could wear my agbada, you know what I mean?
I like August myself.
Yeah. But this man was an extraordinary brother. He was a community activist. He was not just a sit-down scholar. He was out there picketing. He was dealing with Black communities around the country in crises and looking at them and studying them, because we talk about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but we don't talk about the other 80, 90, or 100 Black Wall Streets all across America, from Mumbai to Rosewood to Wilmington and so forth, because we get into that kind of singular kind of focus. But we built those kind of communities all over the country. And Woodson was an inspiration, along with Booker T. Washington, along with W.B. Du Bois, along with Ida B. Wells, along with Mary McLeod Bethune and Mary Church Terrell, who people didn't understand. These were youngsters, like we were young at Adeyemi when we was out there trying to kick it in the 60s and 70s. 18, 19. Yeah. Well, they were that age when we are now making reference to a period of time when these young people was the 18, 19, 20, 25-year-olds fighting for Black freedom. And I heard somebody, there's a man, he came on the internet and he looked really cool. and he's talking about the NACP, and he's talking about Moskowitz, and he's talking about Spingard. Spingard did not start the NACP. He would come aboard later with his money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moskowitz was a social worker and a socialist activist. He was involved in the initial coming together. The NACP was born out of a black organization called the Niagara Movement.
Niagara Movement.
All right. Which had Booker T. Washington in it, Ida B. Wells in it, W.B. Du Bois in it, Mary McLeod Bethune was in it, Carter G. Woodson is in it. All these young black men and women was trying to figure a way out of this thing. The Niagara Movement was born out of an earlier movement that started in Rochester by some black women and morphed into what became known as the Afro-American League. This is before Malcolm X, the 1892. The Afro-American League becomes the Niagara Movement, and that becomes the NACP. And for the first 4 years of the founding of the NACP, it wasn't called the NACP. It was still called the Niagara Movement. And it was the Niagara 4 years later that they named it the NACP because they were trying to attract not just white money, they were trying to attract white legal assistance. Because one of the young brothers who would come into this movement named Thurgood Marshall, right, who was a bad dude. I missed him for years. I go like, he's just some Supreme Court Negro. No, this brother was an absolute brilliant revolutionary. And so you start studying that Thurgood Marshall before the Supreme Court, before any of those things, you see this legal strategist, this ideological strategist who understand that Plessy versus Ferguson must be overturned if we were to have any chance of implementing the 14th Amendment with legitimacy to protect Black people's independence and equality. And so it was Marshall that pushed a lot of these cases through using the NACP and the money that backed it to create Brown versus the board. Now, even I don't agree with Brown versus the board outcome. I thought it damaged us extraordinarily educationally. But what Brown versus the board did was give the Supreme Court the impetus to overturn Percy versus Ferguson, which said separate but equal is legal. But by the time Thurgood Marshall got through with them, they said separate but equal is unconstitutional and violates the 14th Amendment. That was the extraordinary piece that came out of Brown versus the board.
So now let me ask you, because you started out and you talked about the importance of Black History, African American History Month in terms of helping to provide folk with an identity,
right,
a purpose, and also a direction. In your reflections, did Black History Month conceptually or in its implementation fall short? Or do you think that it has achieved and is achieving what it was intended to do?
I think it's achieving what it was intended to do. There was a time I thought it fell short, but when I look back, I think we were being naive and expecting more than we should have expected.
How so?
Because we were talking about millions and millions of people whose socialization process we had no control over, trying to influence them socially and historically to change their worldview. And we didn't even control the institutions. We were fighting to get it into colleges, fighting to get Black studies into school, fighting, begging the churches to open the door. We had no control of any institutions, but we were banging, and we got some of the doors banged open. We got many colleges, many schools across the country. And the young people that they produce took this to them into the institutions of the country, into the corporations where they went to work, into the government agencies they became a part of. And so I think we had a major impact. It wasn't just name changing. This was idea changing.
So let me ask you this. And I thank you for sharing that, because when I think about what is happening in Florida, where they're literally just throwing the books in the street and burning them. And I'm saying to myself, but damn, how many of our people even have read these books? How many people really of our people hold on to this stuff? But yet here they are, damn near making it illegal.
Right. And you know what I say to that one? We're not burning those books. They are.
Right.
And we need to be cognizant of that. That's them burning those books.
Yeah, but my point is, though, does that help in terms of encouraging our people to understand
I
how
think it
important they are?
woke up a lot of people who was taking Black history for granted,
Ah,
feeling it like it wasn't significant or important. And they saw the enemy saying, if we don't stop this train, we won't have it.
yeah.
The trend that had to do with learning yourself. I know how well it works. I have 2 babies. I got a bunch of grandkids, 23 of them. I took 2 of them with me to Ghana this summer, 2 young ladies, one 15 and one 18. One just entering college, one had just entered high school. Going through the same traumas everybody's children go through, because 8 in the morning we go to work and them babies go to the enemy. And we get back home at 5 or 6 and we try to spend 1 hour with them if we can a day. The enemy had them for 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even realize we got to fix something. And so I realized I went to my kids, I'm taking your babies. I ain't even asking y'all. Get them passports because they're hanging out with grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact that 2 weeks in Africa had on them babies was extraordinary. They're still going through some changes, but I'm telling you, Adeyemi, if I could take everybody's children, and I've been doing this with the children and other people's children for 40 years. I know the impact, but to watch it on my 2 babies, I took all my children there before they were 15. And so I know that when they see the importance of history, when they see the significance of them having created civilizations, when they understand that it is possible to dream a dream, somebody says, you shouldn't even bother wasting the time to dream. You see a difference in their character and their behavior and their goals and their ideas and the way they talk and the strength that comes in that conversation. We have got to show our people, and I think we've done a good job. And the Black history movement in this country spilled over into the Caribbean. It spilled over into London, Germany, France, and the continent of Africa. Because the continent of Africa was conquered completely after the Berlin Conference in 1885. By 18... let me go back.
One exception, Ethiopia.
3 exceptions with 1 special exception: Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ethiopia. But since Liberia had that relationship with America, we don't look at it in the same way.
Tell me about Sierra Leone, though.
Sierra Leone had that relationship with the UK, but it was African Americans and African Jamaicans that founded Sierra Leone and freed Africans from the UK.
Oh,
that's what Freetown is all about. And they have their own Creole. So, but some people try to, just like they try to block Liberia out of history, they really block Sierra Leone out of history.
Yeah, and I thought I knew a little history.
Paul Coffey, who took all those brothers and sisters who fought for the British and went to Nova Scotia. The crackers in Nova Scotia wouldn't treated them like trash. And they told the Brits, listen, why don't you just take us home? A brother named Paul Coffey, who had ships, contracted with the British, and he took them home. The British Maroons that had been fighting and raising hell in Jamaica, the British let them go to Nova Scotia. And they said, no, this ain't good enough. We want to go to Africa too. So these thousands of Jamaicans and thousands of African Americans founded, along with hundreds of Africans from Britain, founded Sierra Leone.
Listen, let me stop you for a moment here.
Then we get to Adwa. We don't want to miss Ethiopia.
Yeah. But we want to look back for a moment. Each show, we take a moment to reflect on Festival 54. So the folks who were not there, they'll see what they missed. And those that were there can reflect on that enjoyable experience that they had. So we're going to do that reflections real quick, and then we'll come back and continue our discussion with Professor James Small. hope you all enjoyed that brief interlude from Festival 54. Professor Baba, James Small, we just really appreciate you being with us as folk begin this 100th anniversary of Black History Month. So you dropped something new on me in terms of the three countries that when the Berlin Conference occurred, were not impacted by that, being Ethiopia, Sierra Leone now, and Liberia. So yeah. Continue.
But the greatest of the three countries in terms of the statement made in history is Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia at that time was still called, I forgot the name. Okay, doesn't matter. It's called Ethiopia now. When the Italians tried to take Ethiopia, the emperor and the empress with their varied armies and the people of Ethiopia said no. They signed an agreement with the Italians, hoping they would sign an agreement. We will trade with you, but you're not going to occupy our land. Mm-hmm. Of course, the Italians went home, went before their parliament. Their parliament voted for something different, for you to go and take it. They don't want to give it to you, go take it. And they came to take Ethiopia militarily. And in the mountains and the foothills of Ethiopia, at a battle called Adwa, they got wiped out, whipped, and was forced to run. I'm talking literally run for their lives back to what has become Eritrea. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest defeats a European army had suffered in Africa until the Battle of Sudan, which is another one of the places that almost survived. But the British army came this was after the Battle of Adwa, after the Ethiopians had put a whipping on the Italians. The British and the Turks came to take the Sudan, because taking the Sudan, they would get control of the area where Khartoum is, and the island, there was a special island called Safada, and whoever could get control of that island could control all traffic on the Nile River, and the Nile River was the central corridor for trade in Africa in that day. And so they came to Sudan with 30,000 soldiers, and the Battle of Khartoum was fought, and they went back to Egypt with 3,000 soldiers. I mean, and this was Muhammad Ahmed. They couldn't defeat him. They had to have a saboteur poison his food. So we need to know about these great warriors that fought for us and fought in our history.
Yeah. And listen,
battles.
Good point, because I want to jump forward because obviously I asked you earlier about the impact of Black History Month. Mm-hmm. Do you see its impact in terms of our youth today? You and I come out in the early 60s, SNCC, etc. In the early 70s, then you had what I came out of, the African American Students Association. You had the Black Panther Party, Republic of New Africa, etc. Do you see at this juncture a youth movement that is taking place that has been impacted by Black History Month?
Yeah, I think there's multiple youth movements across the country. And what we're not seeing is the Pan-African Black nationalist type of movement format. What you are seeing is the Black youth moving as entrepreneurs. A larger in the last 20 years, more Black males, for instance, have gone to college than ever in the history of the country.
Oh, really?
In the last, between 22 and say 2019 and 1922, our voting, the Black youth, people put them down, right? But their involvement in voting has increased, not decreased. And their developing of Black business have increased exponentially. In the last 20 years, we've probably seen the fastest growth of Black business since the 1920s. And these are the youth whom you and I was fighting on those college campuses for, to tell them to get these degrees, but we didn't know where they went with the degrees.
Right.
And most Black business that have opened is around management, financial enterprise, healthcare enterprise, social service enterprise. But that's where the Black youth is. And we see more of them getting involved in electoral politics, in a lot, and the number have not decreased. And the number of us voting have not decreased percentage-wise, even though numbers-wise we may have. That Black youth is voting. And sometimes we listen to the the naysayers and we don't see the achievements.
Mm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't spend a $1.7 trillion unless you're making it. Somebody made it.
Uh-huh.
That's what was spent last year as a consumer dollars. And
well, the criticism is always that it goes out of our community and that it's not really developing.
That's part of the work that has to be done. But we've got the young people producing businesses, and I've done some stats on the business. I'm trying to look and see if I can see them. They're producing the businesses, and they're hiring our people because these are businesses with one or more employee. And I think in out of the 132,000 new employees business that was produced, 70,000 was Black in the last 10 years. That's almost 50%. That's our youth. That's the population between 18 and 40 that's producing these businesses. Now, true, most businesses after the first year, they lose about 5%. After the second year, after the first 5 years, you may lose another 10%. But if you can make it to 20 years, the chances are you're going to make it. But the fact is, these things are happening and no one is recording and projecting it. It's like the crime rate. The crime rate for our children involvement has dropped by almost 60% nationally. But nobody's talking about it.
Why?
Because they don't want that to be the narrative. When they were going to jail every day and 3 strikes and you're out and the crack was killing us, everybody was saying, yeah, look at the Black kids. But they've turned that around.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're still more likely to get arrested.
What do you think caused that turnaround?
I think the consciousness, which came from Black history. All of our people know a little bit of something about Black history, even if they don't get it right. Because I have my children, and they be talking. They don't always have it right, but they got a piece of it. And Black history, to some degree, has an importance to them.
Can I ask you this? While we're talking about Black history, but you know what I found too was that a lot of brothers and sisters who came out of the institutions came out with a whole different knowledge base and their level of commitment, etc. You know, the brother that taught me to drive had come out of jail. He got busted as a getaway driver, but he didn't get away this time. But I mean, you know, the man knew 3 languages, spoke Swahili fluently, and you know, that incarceration rate. Do you think that was another school in itself?
Oh yeah. Not only was it a school, because see, Blacks were sometimes 29 to 30 times more likely to be incarcerated for the same crime that a white youth was allowed to walk away and go back home. And when they were incarcerated, the Black youth was almost 60 times more likely to get a higher sentence than the white youth for the same crime. Well, they were not unaware of this. They may have been helpless in getting out of there, though many of them took to the legal path. What began to happen, despite that 50 years of hip hop and the aspect, I don't call it a culture. Hip hop is a variation on an aspect of African musical culture, but it unto itself is not a culture. And it was used almost as a weapon with the drug flow flying in through the crack and the cocaine at the time, as a weapon to incarcerate mentally the Black youth. The Black youth is the most dangerous creature on the planet Earth because that's tomorrow. And if you can cripple that aspect of a people, you cripple the whole people. Okay? And I think the Black youth began with the fighting. Remember, we was fighting on every college campus in America to get our kids in there. We were fighting on every college campus to get Black studies. We were fighting on every elementary school and junior high school to get Black studies. We were founding the East and the Huru Sasa and all of the Black cultural schools from DC to LA to Newark to New York.
Right.
Well, this generation today came out of those schools.
Yeah.
We didn't follow them. We didn't have a method to see where did they go. Where did that child who we had in the Rites of Passage program, wearing that red, black, and green and dancing during Black History Month, where did she go? She went to college, and she's graduating at a high. That generation has of Black women in particular has graduated at a higher rate than any group of men or women in any race in the history of the world ever.
Well, I got to tell you, from our experience, because we created that institution, pardon me, and not just the Hurusasa, but the East itself, I'm no longer amazed at the number of young people who came through that experience who are absolutely knocking it out the park.
Out the park.
You understand? Our producer here, Beware Van Zant, is producing all of this stuff and also working with his mother, Iana Van Zant. My son running corporations, but also founder of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. So they're able to bring together the experiences that they had from festival. The commissioner of cultural affairs in New York City, Lori Cumbo, her father used to bring her to the East and then brought her to festival. And now, Ibaye, he just passed last year, but she comes out to festival with her son. So at one point, we had 3 generations of people who were impacted by this institution that we built. And I'm sure the same thing up in Harlem. The folks that came out of National Black Theater and those places. But you're right. Unfortunately, we don't tell the story properly.
So when we look and see that, wait a minute, Black business growth have been something, I actually put the stat down with the Black business growth stat. It's something like you wouldn't believe it, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Most of the new Black businesses that's coming into being, something like 42%, new businesses that's coming into being every year, 42% is Black. And we go like, okay, how do we miss that? Because we weren't looking for it. They've taught us to look for the prison record. They taught us to look for the crime statistics. They taught us to look for certain things. And then our narrative reflects that. And then we walk around the world and we see these people. And I had a meeting last night with my eldest son, who's the principal of a school over in Brownsville. And he came with his business partner, a young Black man, they're both in their early 40s, who has developed educational technology equipment, drones and teaching tools and things like that. And they wanted me to give them a grooming, because they're getting ready to go to Africa next week to see if they can market this and sell some of these concepts and ideas to African schools in multiple countries that they're going to. These are the children. These are my children's generation.
And grandchildren.
Yeah. So I see them every day. I'm on platforms all over Africa and the Caribbean every week. I mean, I'm so weird. My wife said, I don't get to see you except when you come to bed at night and we're in the same house, which is true. I hear you.
I hear you. Keep the balance, Baba. Keep the balance.
Yes, I understand, because that woman, she can get hard.
But listen, we'll bring you back when we do the relationships discussion.
Yes, but it's our youth are doing better than anybody ever thought, and probably better than any generation we've ever produced. But we have to begin to measure it. We can't leave it for granted. We say, oh, well, he works in government. Okay, we were saying one of the problem with injustice is that we're not there. Now we're there by the thousands, and now we're criticizing being there.
Yeah.
So we have to reprogram how we create the narrative to describe our success.
Oh man,
our achievements.
Yeah. Interesting you say that, because one of my sons is a police officer in New York City there, and you think about that situation and what it puts him in, his danger out there. But at the same time, back in the days, we were struggling trying to get more Black and Puerto Rican teachers and police officers.
Yes.
And as you probably well know, their journey is not an easy one either, because in education, they had to fight the UFT. In the police department, you probably remember Brother Hamza Al-Hafiz, Lenny Weir.
Yes.
The Society of Afro-American Policemen. They had to fight once they got into that system.
Right. I just wrote the foreword to a book. A friend of mine, Lynn Hampton, who just left
Oh,
yesterday
yeah.
for Ghana, and it's called Conscious Policing. And Lynn is a hell of a brother, and how he worked with the Afro-American Police Association in Cleveland through his 31 years on the force, fighting for his community and orienting his brothers and sisters to do the same thing. And now he's come out with a book called Conscious Policing, which is when I started reading, I go like, oh, this is really Lynn. He's crazier than I thought he was. But I wrote the forward to this book and turned it in on last weekend before he went away. Hopefully it'll be out in a couple of months. And I think it would be a great lesson because I'm still a great advocate of Black young men and women joining the corrections officer, joining the police department, joining any of these uniformed forces. 2 reasons. 1, I want you with the legal gun in my community. 2, I want to make sure that I'm being policed by people who got some love and empathy for me. And if I'm going to have a police force, it should look like my grandson and my great-grandson. You know? So I still, when I was at City College, I used to put out the police applications every year, the firemen with the Vulcan application every year, trying to get our kids to join the force. And I still,
one would not believe that of you, you know. Listen.
I know. But they don't understand. Malcolm X said, somebody asked him, said, Brother Minister Malcolm, what do you mean by Black nationalism? He said, I mean controlling the economic, the politics, and the culture where you live. Okay?
Hello.
Not just wearing a red, black, and green flag. I love my red, black, and green flag. But that's a symbol of the ideas of me controlling economic, politics, and culture, land, labor, and resources, providing food, clothing, and shelter for me and my community. I can't do that allowing someone else to be in control of my environment.
Hello. That is an absolutely wonderful place to end our discussion this first week of Black History Month. We are honored to have you, Baba Professor James Small.
Thank you, Bob.
And you know, I hit up our producer, should we do 2 hours? But he said, no, let's you know, they have this thing about say some and save some.
Yes.
I want to really thank you. I mean, you know, the discussion took me back when you talked about reclamation site and you didn't even mention the East Wind.
We enjoyed ourselves fighting.
Man, you know,
we only got beat up,
and we were making history. But thank you so much. Appreciate you. Stay the course. Don't leave though, because I want to check something else. But folks, let me remind you one more time. I need you to support us, share, follow us, and make a contribution. Go to Facebook or Instagram at IAA Festival. We want to see you Sunday, February 22nd at Restoration for the Black community and Mamdani, and then Libation back at Restoration Sunday, June 7th. And then 55th anniversary International African Arts Festival, July 3rd through 5th at Lincoln Terrace Park. And Baba James, I know I see you out there walking around sometimes.
Yes,
and always glad to have you. Listen, folks, until next week, I want to thank you. And once again, Baba Professor James Small. I'm Adeyemi Bandele. You all stay strong, stay safe, and be blessed.